Why we brought you here this evening. First of all, we wanted to thank you for your interest in us and get to know you better and let you know who we are. But we do have a very special announcement to make. Deslin has press kits, which everybody can take with them, which has a press release and photos and stuff in it. Here's the big announcement. Over the years, we have become what Terry Teachout in his biography, Pops, called the world's largest, he calls it the largest publicly held archives in the world devoted to a jazz musician. And he's right. We have the largest collection in the world for a single jazz musician. The Institute of Jazz Studies is fabulous. That's the largest repository in the world to jazz in general. But as far as one musician, we're it. We have the Louis Armstrong collection, which is the stuff that was discovered here in this house, thanks to Phoebe Jacobs and the Armstrong Foundation. That's Louis's vast personal collection of more than 700 reel-to-reel tapes and 85 scrapbooks and 120 gold records and awards and 12 linear feet of personal papers and manuscripts. Louis was a pack rat. Discovered in this house was all this stuff. That's one collection. We have what we call the Satchmo collection, which is new stuff we've acquired. Whatever we've acquired since then, letters Louis wrote to people are coming back to us, pictures people took of Louis are coming back to us. We don't mix that in with Louis's stuff. That's shelved separately. Call that the Satchmo collection. We have the Phoebe Jacobs collection, letters and personal papers and business papers from the Armstrong Educational Foundation. We have the Jack Bradley collection. Jack is the world's largest private collector of Armstrong material. Thanks to a grant from the Armstrong Foundation, we've acquired Jack's collection. It came to us one shipment per year for 6 years. Every October we'd rent a van, drive to Cape Cod, load it up, and bring it back. We did that 6 times. You see a handful of Jack stuff here in these cases. So with those 4 collections, we now have the world's largest collection devoted to any one jazz musician. And in fact, I'm not going to say more about this, but we also have another major collection that is coming our way. I can't say more about it. But here's my announcement tonight. We got all this stuff. We got a grant from the Institute's Museum and Library Services a year and a half ago, to process these collections. We bought a software called Past Perfect, which is the leading software for small museums and historical societies. We had a national search for a project archivist, somebody to work with all these collections. And who applied but Ricky Riccardi, okay? Ricky is the foremost satchologist out there in the world. He has a blog on Louis Armstrong, diplomat.blogspot.com, that's read by people all over the world. He has a book coming out about Louis Armstrong next spring, which we'll tell you more about. Ricky's the guy. It's like looking for a shortstop and Derek Jeter applies, you know. It wasn't a tough decision. So Ricky has been coming to work every work day for the past 15 months. He comes from Toms River, New Jersey, and arrives at work in Queens at 7 a.m., okay, and begins typing stuff into a database. So Ricky's been doing this for 15 months, keying information, scanning photographs, putting this stuff into a database. We now pretty much have 3 of our 5 collections entirely in this database, and earlier today we flicked a switch and put it on our website. And so here's the announcement. The essence of it is you can now go to the website, louisarmstronghouse.org, and browse through our catalog, browse through our stuff. So I've talked enough. I'm going to turn it over to Ricky to show you our online catalog, and Ricky and I can answer questions about the collection and what you'll see online.
Sure.
Ricky.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, this is it. This is the first time we're really going live with this. So
this is our home page. This is our website.
Now to access the collection, we'll go to Museum Collections. And on the left, this is the online catalog. And here it is, Louis Armstrong House Museum online catalog. Now, what we have in there so far is about 98% of the Louis Armstrong collection, everything Louis left behind. We have about 99.5% of the Jack Bradley collection, and we have 100% of the House collection. So these 3 things are in here. You can search any keyword and items pop up. Now,
But
let's-
by house collection, we mean all the objects inside the house that some of you just saw, all the sofas and paintings and ceramics and stuff.
So, just throwing out a search here, the first one I have lined up is Joe Glazer. Now, Joe Glazer, of course, was Louis Armstrong's manager. You know, they had a beautiful relationship for years, from 1926 until Glazer died in 1969. Well, naturally, we have many items on Joe Glazer in all these collections. So if you go to the keyword, type in Joe Glazer, things start popping up immediately. Now, for many records, I've actually scanned the photographs or the objects to give you an idea of what it looks like. So, for example, Louis Armstrong owned this painting, and that's Joe Glazer in the middle, New York City in the upper corner, Louis in the other corner, and dogs on the bottom. Joe Glazer raised champion dogs. So that's one thing you get when you look up Joe Glazer. But the more you keep looking, we have all these object records. We have posters that mention Joe Glazer, and here's some fun stuff here. We have manuscripts, manuscripts that Louis wrote. You can click on the manuscript, read an entire description. You don't actually read the manuscript, but it's a description of what is contained in the manuscript. You can see one page of the manuscript to see what it looks like. But this manuscript it mentions is dedicated to Joe Glazer. And then if you keep going, if you notice, we have 16 pages of records for Joe Glazer. One fun thing we did is we scanned Louis's tape boxes. So here, this reel right here, 1987.3.189, mentions Joe Glazer. Louis points out his Star of David pendant, and talks about Jewish people and business relations between Negroes. When you click on the link,
Glazer's voice on that tape?
Glazer's voice is on one tape, but each tape box is completely described what's on there. They've all been converted to CD, all of Louis's reel-to-reel recordings. So you get a track-by-track listing of what's on every CD.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
add a footnote to that,
Sure.
because this is something that in previous conversations, it's a question that comes up. This is a catalog, it's not the collection. In other words, here's a reproduction of Louis's tape box. The front, Louis hand decorated hundreds of tape boxes. Here's a reproduction of the front of the tape box. Here's a reproduction of the back of the tape box. Here's a complete description of everything on that tape. It's not the actual tape. You're not getting an MP3 file and listening to the tape. So it's a catalog of the collections. It's not actually, full text retrieval of, today
Right.
a lot of people think, oh, the entire bibliographic universe is accessible through Google and YouTube, It's our catalog, not the collection.
Right.
Yes, Phoebe.
I'd like to